What if I told you that the man everyone mocked, the man they swore would never make it, is now the one signing their paychecks? If you saw him now, standing at the pinnacle of success, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit, his wrist adorned with a Rolex, his presence commanding any room he entered, you'd think he had always been destined for greatness. But that's not how it started. Darius King had once believed in fairness. He thought if you worked hard, if you stayed loyal, if you followed the rules, success would find you. But life had other plans. His world crumbled on a Monday. Mondays were always terrible, but this was the kind of Monday that shattered lives. He had spent 6 years at Argon Tech, working his way up from an underpaid intern to a mid-level software engineer. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, or so he thought. That morning, dressed in his usual second-hand blazer, he stepped into the conference room expecting a promotion. Instead, he got a pink slip. "We appreciate your dedication, Darius, but the company is moving in a different direction." The words came from his mentor, Mitchell Grayson, the man who had promised him a future, the man who had once told him, "Stay loyal and I'll take care of you." Darius sat there, numb, his hands clenched under the table as Mitchell continued his rehearsed corporate speech. The board members barely looked at him. His years of work, his sacrifices, late nights, missed birthdays, weekends spent hunched over his laptop, had amounted to nothing. Darius finally said, his voice calm but sharp, "I built the back-end system your company runs on. You're cutting me loose after everything I..." Mitchell sighed, feigning regret. "It's just business, Darius." No, it wasn't just business. It was a betrayal. Losing the job meant losing everything. The rent was due. His mother's medical bills were piling up. He had nothing in savings. How could he when every dollar went toward keeping her alive? By the end of the month, he was evicted. He could still hear his landlord's voice. "Sorry, kid, nothing personal." That's what everyone said when they ripped your life apart. He spent nights sleeping in his car, parked outside a 24-hour diner. Every morning, he'd walk in, order the cheapest coffee on the menu, and pretend he had somewhere to go. It was in that diner, on a particularly cold night, that the weight of his reality hit him. The coffee was stale, but it was warm. His laptop screen cast a dim glow over his tired face. Job application after job application. Each rejection stung like salt in an open wound. Then, a voice broke his thoughts. "Damn, man, you fell off." Darius looked up, his stomach tightened. Jordan Steele, back in college. Jordan was the guy who never missed an opportunity to mock him. Unlike Darius, Jordan came from money. His father was a big-shot investor, and Jordan had coasted through life, always flaunting his privilege. Now, Jordan stood over him, smirking, expensive suit, a gold watch, and that same arrogant look in his eyes. "I heard about Argon," Jordan continued. "Tough break. But, he pulled out a business card. I might be hiring. Entry level, of course." Darius glanced at the card. Steele Enterprises, a financial firm, a place where people like Jordan would own him. He slid the card back across the table. "I'm good." Jordan chuckled. "Suit yourself. Some people just aren't built for success." And just like that, he was gone. Darius sat there, his pride battered but intact. But inside, a fire burned. They thought he was finished. They thought he'd never make it. They were wrong. Darius didn't sleep that night. Instead, he made a decision. He wasn't looking for a job anymore. He was building his own. He had always been good with software, but his true talent? Understanding systems. Seeing the flaws, the inefficiencies, the gaps that others missed. If companies didn't want him, he'd outsmart them. He started small, offering freelance consulting, helping struggling businesses streamline their operations. His first client was a tiny law firm drowning in paperwork. He automated their entire system in a week. Word spread. One client turned into 5. 5 turned into 15. But it wasn't enough. He needed capital. That's when he found him. Darius had heard whispers of him. A self-made billionaire. Ruthless. Private. A ghost in the world of finance. Vincent Morrow. He didn't take meetings. He didn't do handshakes, but he had a reputation for recognizing talent. Darius didn't have connections, but he had something better, a way in. He found a flaw in one of Morrow's companies, a financial vulnerability no one had caught. He drafted a report outlining how he could fix it and sent it directly to Morrow's private email. 2 days later, he got a reply. Meet me, midnight, no entourage. Darius wasn't sure what to expect, but he showed up. The meeting was in an empty skyscraper, the top floor under construction. Vincent Morrow stood by the window, looking out over the city. He didn't turn around when Darius entered. You have 5 minutes, Morrow said. Darius didn't waste a second. He broke down the flaws, the risks, the solutions. When he finished, there was silence. Then Morrow turned. He was older, sharp-eyed, with an expression carved from stone. You're either brilliant or reckless, Morrow said. Either way, I like it. That night, Vincent Morrow didn't just invest in Darius. He mentored him. He taught him the games the rich played, the deals that never made the news. And Darius learned fast. Within a year, Darius owned his first company. Within 3, he had 5. He became the name people whispered about, the man who came out of nowhere, the ghost who turned setbacks into stepping stones. And then one day, an acquisition deal landed on his desk. Steel Enterprises. Jordan Steele's company was drowning in debt. A hostile takeover was imminent. Darius smiled. He didn't need the company, but he wanted it, because nothing tasted sweeter than proving them wrong. As he signed the final papers, he made one request. Jordan would stay on as an employee. Months later, Darius walked into Steel Enterprises' office. His office now. Jordan sat across from him, looking at the contract. His face was pale, his jaw clenched. You work for me now, Darius said, his voice smooth. Jordan swallowed hard. This is personal, isn't it? Darius leaned back, a slow smirk forming. No, Jordan, his eyes gleamed. This is just business. They say hard work pays off, that if you just keep grinding, if you sacrifice, if you push through, success is inevitable. But they never tell you the part where the system is designed to break you first. Darius King had won, or so he thought. Buying out Steel Enterprises was supposed to be his moment of triumph, the ultimate revenge against the people who had once laughed at him. But success in their world came with a price. He had stepped into an arena where the rules were unwritten. The real decisions were made in the shadows, and the people at the top had no intention of letting a man like him stay there for long. Because in the world of power and money, the house always wins. And the house had just placed a bet against him. The first warning sign came disguised as a minor inconvenience. A routine audit of his newly acquired company uncovered irregularities, missing funds, falsified tax filings, and hidden debts. At first, Darius assumed it was just Jordan Steele's incompetence. But when his legal team dug deeper, the truth was far worse. Steel Enterprises had been set up to fail long before Darius ever touched it. Jordan and his board had been siphoning money out of the company for years, hiding it through offshore accounts, fake shell corporations, and fraudulent investments. Now, with Darius as a new owner, the authorities weren't looking at Jordan anymore. They were looking at him. The IRS, the SEC, even the Department of Justice. They were all coming for him. And Jordan, the man who had run the scam, he was nowhere to be found. Darius barely slept. Every morning, his phone exploded with calls from lawyers, regulators, and reporters circling like vultures. His face was splashed across financial news headlines. Darius King under investigation for corporate fraud. From rags to riches and back again, the whispers turned into accusations. The accusations turned into lawsuits. And then, the banks turned on him. First, it was a routine review of his business accounts. Then suddenly, his credit lines were revoked. Lenders backed out of deals. Investors panicked and pulled their money. Darius was running a financial empire, but now he had no cash to run it. Then came the worst blow. His mother's nurse called. Mr. King, I'm sorry, but we have received payment from your insurance. Your mother's treatments are on hold until we sort this out. Darius felt his stomach drop. What? That's impossible. The payments are automatic. The nurse hesitated. There was a problem with your accounts. The funds didn't go through. The system wasn't just trying to destroy him. It was trying to make him watch as it destroyed the people he loved. His legal team, or what was left of it, called for an emergency meeting. This isn't about fraud, Darius, his lead attorney, Anita Patel, said. It's about power. He already knew it. He could feel it. He had spent years trying to prove that he could make it, that hard work was enough. But in the end, it didn't matter how brilliant he was. It didn't matter that he had outworked them, outthought them, out-earned them. The system wasn't built for men like him to win. It was built to keep them out. Darius wasn't stupid. He knew someone had helped orchestrate this attack against him. The leaks, the sudden investigations, the lawsuits. But he never expected the betrayal to come from within. Jordan Steele wasn't just hiding. He had flipped. In a stunning announcement, Jordan emerged from the shadows to testify against Darius. I had no idea about the financial mismanagement. I trusted Darius to save the company. But he must have had other plans. Jordan played the role of the remorseful businessman perfectly, and it worked. The media devoured the story. The government latched onto it. Darius had been framed, but nobody cared. His assets were frozen. His business partners abandoned him. Even the people who once looked up to him now whispered, maybe he was a fraud. He was being erased. But he wasn't going down without a fight. It all came to a head in the courtroom. Darius sat at the defendant's table, his once flawless suit wrinkled from nights spent reviewing legal documents instead of sleeping. Across from him sat Jordan Steele, his former enemy, now playing the victim. The prosecution painted a picture. A reckless outsider who had come from nothing and tried to take shortcuts to the top. A brilliant mind who got greedy. A fraud. When Jordan took the stand, he played his part well. I trusted Darius, Jordan said, his voice laced with feigned pain. I admired him. I believed in him. But he manipulated us all. Darius clenched his jaw. He had spent years proving them wrong, only for them to tear him down like they always wanted to. But then the moment came. The defense called its next witness, and the courtroom doors opened. Everyone turned as Vincent Morrow entered, the billionaire, the man who had once mentored Darius. Nobody had expected him to show up. Not here, not now. Morrow's presence alone sent a ripple through the courtroom. Jordan stiffened. The prosecution hesitated, and then Morrow spoke. His voice was calm, calculated, and deadly. I'm here to tell the truth, he said. His gaze landed on Jordan, and to expose the real fraud in this room. Power isn't just about what you build. It's about what you know, and what you can prove. The courtroom was silent. Vincent Morrow had just dropped a bombshell, his voice sliced into the thick tension like a blade. Jordan Steele, once the golden boy of old money and privilege, sat frozen in his seat. His usual smirk was gone, his face pale. The prosecution shuffled through their papers, suddenly unsure of their footing. Darius sat at the defendant's table, his heart pounding. This was the moment he had been waiting for, but he didn't know why Morrow was here or what he had just set in motion. Mr. Morrow, the judge said, adjusting her glasses, you understand that making false statements under oath is a criminal offense? Morrow's lips curved into a knowing smile. I do, Your Honor. He turned, his sharp blue eyes locking onto Jordan Steele. That's why I came here to make sure the truth is told. Jordan swallowed hard. Darius felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. But as Morrow spoke, Darius would realize that the truth he was about to hear would change everything, including who he could trust. Morrow took the stand, and the moment he started speaking, it was clear he wasn't here to save Darius. He was here to expose the game. The financial records of Steele Enterprises weren't just mismanaged, Morrow said. They were deliberately falsified for years, long before Mr. King ever stepped in. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Jordan's lawyer shot up. Objection. Speculation. The judge held up a hand. Mr. Morrow, do you have evidence? Morrow nodded. I do. I was asked to cover it up. Gasps filled the courtroom. Darius narrowed his eyes. Something wasn't right. Morrow wasn't his ally. He was a wild card. I was approached by Mr. Steele and members of his board to help sweep this under the rug. In exchange, I would receive controlling interest in Steele Enterprises once Darius King was pushed out. Darius gritted his teeth. So that was it. Morrow had never believed in him. He had just wanted the company for himself. And Jordan, the man who had set Darius up to take the fall, he had planned to hand the business over to Morrow all along. Jordan's lawyer scrambled to object, but the damage was done. The jury wasn't just looking at Darius anymore. They were looking at Jordan. And Morrow, he had just shifted the entire battlefield. That night, Darius sat in his nearly empty penthouse, staring at the city lights. Everything was unraveling. Morrow had blown up Jordan's credibility, but not out of loyalty to Darius. He was playing his own game, and Darius was still in danger of losing everything. That's when it happened. A message popped up on his phone from a blocked number. You're looking in the wrong place. The answer is in the Cayman archives. Follow the trail. An old friend. Darius' pulse spiked. The Cayman archives? He thought back to his investigation into Steele Enterprises' offshore accounts. Everything had led to dead ends. Bank statements wiped clean, records missing. But what if they hadn't erased everything? By morning, Darius was on a plane to the Cayman Islands. The air was thick with salt, the sun blinding as he stepped off the private jet. He wasn't here to vacation. He was here to find the one thing that could save him. His contact, an old financial analyst named Hector Ruiz, met him at a quiet beachside cafe. You're either brave or stupid for coming here, Hector said, lighting a cigarette. Both, Darius admitted. Tell me what you know. Hector exhaled a stream of smoke. Steele Enterprises didn't just hide money, they had ownership. Darius frowned. What do you mean? Hector slid a file across the table. Darius flipped it open, and his breath caught in his throat. A hidden clause in the original Steele Enterprises contract was buried in the paperwork. A loophole, one Jordan had missed, one Morrow had missed, one that changed everything. Darius read the fine print, his hands shaking. According to the clause, any CEO who inherited the company through acquisition gained automatic rights to the company's hidden offshore assets. Assets that Jordan had been funneling away for years. Darius wasn't just fighting to clear his name. He owned everything Jordan had stolen. And Morrow? He had tried to push Darius out, thinking he was taking control of a dying company, never realizing that Darius already had the key to the fortune Morrow wanted. A slow smile spread across Darius' face. For the first time in weeks, he wasn't just surviving, he was winning. Darius turned to Hector. Can you verify this? Hector smirked. Not only can I verify it, I can make sure it's recognized in court. Darius' heart pounded. If this worked, he wouldn't just clear his name. He would own everything Jordan and Morrow had tried to steal from him. And then his phone rang. Blocked number. He hesitated, then answered. Who is this? A familiar voice came through the line. Cold, calculated. Morrow, you just made the biggest mistake of your life, Darius. Click. Darius stared at the phone. Morrow knew. And now, the real war was about to begin. Power isn't taken. It's reclaimed. Darius King stared at his phone, Morrow's final words still ringing in his ears. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. But Morrow was wrong, because Darius hadn't just found a way out of his legal disaster. He had found leverage. Everything Jordan Steele had stolen, the offshore accounts, the hidden assets, the real power behind Steele Enterprises, belonged to him now. And Morrow, the man who thought he had won, he was about to realize that Darius King wasn't just coming back. He was coming for everything. Hector Ruiz worked fast. Within days, the hidden clause was verified and legally recognized. Darius King was, by every legal definition, the rightful owner of Steele Enterprises' hidden wealth. But owning something on paper meant nothing if he couldn't control it. And Morrow, he had connections. He had money. And he had a head start. If Darius wanted to survive, he had to do more than expose the truth. He had to outplay everyone. Morrow made his first move 3 days later. A public statement. Recent allegations against Steele Enterprises have been misrepresented. As acting CEO, I intend to restore this company's integrity and ensure a better future for its shareholders. Translation: Morrow was bearing the truth before Darius could use it against him. Darius had expected this. What Morrow hadn't expected, Darius had already moved first. The day before Morrow's announcement, Darius had flown to Dubai for a secret meeting with one of Steel Enterprises' largest investors, Amir Khalid bin Rashid, a man who controlled billions in international real estate and energy, a man Jordan Steele had lied to. The meeting was private, exclusive, just the two of them. "You want me to believe," Khalid said, sipping his tea, "that Steel Enterprises belongs to you?" Darius met his gaze. "Not just believe it, invest in it." Khalid smirked. "Why should I?" Darius leaned forward. "Because Morrow is lying to you, and I can prove it." He slid a USB drive across the table. Inside, documents showing how Jordan and Morrow had siphoned money from Khalid's investments. For a moment, Khalid said nothing. Then he chuckled, a slow, knowing laugh. "Mr. King," he said, "you're either a fool or a very dangerous man." Darius smiled. "I can be both." Khalid studied him for a long moment. Then he leaned back, stroking his beard. "Fine," he said. "I'll back you." Darius exhaled. He had just secured a billionaire investor. Morrow had no idea what was coming. The morning after Morrow's public statement, Darius made his move. A private press conference. Invitation only. Every major business journalist was there. Morrow hadn't expected him to speak so soon. Darius stepped onto the podium. The cameras flashed. Then he dropped the bombshell. Last year, Jordan Steele and Vincent Morrow manipulated financial reports to cover up corporate fraud. I have the proof. And as of today, I am exercising my legal ownership rights over Steel Enterprises' offshore holdings. Gasps, murmurs. The journalists scrambled to take notes. Then Darius delivered his final blow. Morrow called me a mistake. The truth? His mistake was underestimating me. He doesn't own this company. He pulled out the contract. The loophole? I do. Silence. Then chaos. Morrow had spent months building his control. Darius had just ripped it away in 5 minutes. Morrow's reaction came fast. He filed an emergency lawsuit, claiming Darius was fabricating evidence. The media was in a frenzy. Morrow had spent millions crafting his perfect image. Darius had just burned it to the ground. But this wasn't just a fight over money. It was a fight over who controlled the boardroom. And Morrow? He wasn't finished yet. Because 2 days later, Darius received an anonymous tip. A single message on his phone. "You're close, but you missed something. Morrow is hiding one last secret. Dig deeper." Darius froze. What secret? Had he won? Or had Morrow set him up for something even bigger? One thing was certain. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Every empire is built on two things: secrets and power. Morrow thought he held both. He was wrong. Darius King sat in his penthouse office, staring at the anonymous message on his phone. "You're close, but you missed something. Morrow is hiding one last secret. Dig deeper." A tip like this wasn't random. It meant someone inside Morrow's circle wanted him taken down. And that meant one thing: Morrow was vulnerable. But what was he hiding? Darius clenched his jaw. He had come too far to let a single missing piece cost him everything. If Morrow had one last secret, Darius was going to tear it out of him. Darius didn't have time to waste. He called Hector Ruiz. "I need everything you can find on Morrow. The offshore accounts, hidden records, anything that doesn't add up." Hector hesitated. "You think there's still more?" "There's always more." Hector sighed. "Give me a few hours." Darius hung up and poured himself a drink. This was a final stretch. Morrow had spent his entire career covering his tracks, manipulating people, and burying his enemies. Darius had already exposed the fraud. But if there was one more thing Morrow had hidden, it wasn't just about money. It was about power. And if Darius found it first, Morrow would never recover. Hours later, Hector called back. His voice was tense. "Darius, you're not going to believe this." "Try me." Hector exhaled. "Morrow's offshore accounts?" They weren't just for money laundering. He was funneling funds into shell companies, and one of them was secretly used to bribe government officials. Darius went still. Bribes? Hector continued. Not just any bribes. We're talking high-level payouts to judges, politicians, and even law enforcement. And guess who authorized them? Darius's grip tightened on his glass. Jordan Steele. A slow, dark smile spread across Darius's face. He hadn't just uncovered Moreau's last secret. He had proof that Jordan Steele was still pulling the strings. Jordan hadn't just framed him. He had been protecting himself the entire time. And Moreau? He wasn't the real king of this game. He was just Jordan's pawn. Darius knew he had to be careful. This wasn't just about corporate power anymore. This was about exposing an entire system of corruption. And if he moved too fast, Jordan and Moreau would destroy the evidence before he could use it. So he set a trap. He called Moreau directly. "You win," Darius said, his voice controlled. "I'm walking away." Silence. Then Moreau laughed. "Smart choice, King. You were always in over your head." Darius let the insult slide. "I just want one last meeting, to make things right." Moreau hesitated, but his ego wouldn't let him turn down the chance to gloat. "Fine," he said. "My office. Midnight." Darius hung up, and then he made his real move. Darius walked into Moreau's office that night with nothing in his hands. No files, no threats, no evidence, just confidence. Moreau leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You thought you could beat me?" Darius sat across from him. "I don't have to beat you, Moreau. I just have to let you destroy yourself." Moreau frowned. "What the hell does that mean?" Darius pulled out his phone and pressed play. A recording. Jordan Steele's voice came through the speaker. "Moreau, I don't care how you do it. Just get rid of him." King was never supposed to find out about the offshore accounts. Moreau's face drained of color. Darius leaned forward. "You weren't the mastermind, Moreau. You were the cleanup guy." Moreau shot up. "This is fake." Darius smiled. "I've got bank statements, wire transfers, and a signed order from Steele himself." He leaned in. "You think the media is going to care who made the final decision? Or will they just see you as the face of corporate corruption?" Moreau's hands clenched into fists. "You're bluffing." Darius slid a folder across the desk. "Open it." Moreau hesitated. Then he did. Inside, copies of the sealed legal documents tying Moreau directly to the bribery scandal. Darius smiled. "Checkmate." Moreau looked up, panic creeping into his eyes. "You son of a..." Darius stood. "You have two options. One, you go down for this alone. Or two," Moreau swallowed. "Or two," Darius smirked. "Or two, you help me take Jordan Steele down instead." Moreau stared at the evidence. He was trapped, but before he could respond, his phone buzzed. A single text. His face went pale. Darius raised an eyebrow. "Something wrong?" Moreau didn't answer. Instead, he turned his phone around. Darius's heart stopped. The message was from Jordan Steele. "If you're reading this, Moreau, it means King won. Don't bother fighting it. You know what to do." Darius frowned. "What the hell does that mean?" Moreau's hand shook. His breathing was ragged. Then, without a word, he pulled a gun from his desk drawer and aimed it at his head. Darius lunged forward. "Moreau, don't." A single gunshot echoed through the office. Darius froze. Moreau collapsed onto his desk. Blood pooled beneath him. His final words? Barely a whisper. "He always wins." Darius stumbled back, his mind racing. Jordan Steele had been 10 steps ahead this entire time. Moreau was never meant to make it out alive. And now, Darius was the only one left standing. The media was going to blame him. And Jordan? He was already gone. Darius clenched his fists. This wasn't over. Not even close. Power isn't given. It's taken. And when you take it, you make damn sure no one can take it from you. Darius King stood over Moreau's lifeless body, his pulse pounding like a war drum. Blood pooled across the sleek mahogany desk. The silence was suffocating. Jordan Steele had outplayed them both. He had orchestrated this moment, forced Moreau to take the fall, and vanish into the shadows before anyone could reach him. But this wasn't over. Darius had spent years crawling out of the depths of poverty, betrayal, and ruin. Jordan thought he could erase him from the board. He was wrong. Darius wasn't playing by anyone's rules anymore. And this time, he was coming for everything. Darius wiped his hands clean and walked out of Moreau's office like nothing had happened. By the time the police arrived, he was already 2 steps ahead. Moreau's death? Labeled a suicide. The bribery scandal? All evidence pointed straight to Moreau and his independent actions. The media ate it up. Corrupt CEO takes his own life after massive fraud scandal exposed. Darius watched it unfold from a distance, staying silent. The headlines were exactly what he needed. While everyone was focused on Moreau's fall, Darius was making his next move. Because behind the scenes, Darius King now controlled Moreau's empire. With Moreau gone, his assets were frozen. The board of directors? Paralyzed by fear. Stock prices plummeted overnight. And right when the company was on the verge of collapse, Darius stepped in. He called an emergency meeting with Moreau's former executives. They expected him to beg for a seat at the table. Instead, he owned the room. "Gentlemen, let's not waste time," he said, his voice calm, controlled. "Moreau's gone. His secrets are out. Investors are pulling their money, and you're all one headline away from losing everything." They shifted in their seats. "But I have a solution," Darius continued, sliding a folder across the table. Inside, a buyout proposal. Darius had used the very loopholes Moreau exploited to secure majority control of the company's remaining shares. In other words, he was now their boss. One by one, the executives turned pale. How did you?" one of them stammered. Darius smirked. "I spent years watching Moreau manipulate this company. I know every trick, every backdoor deal, every weakness. The only difference? I'm better at this than he ever was." Silence. Then one of them spoke. "What do you want?" Darius leaned forward. "Everything." Darius didn't just take over Moreau's company. He exposed every rotten piece of it. Within weeks, he turned the bribery scandal into a massive corporate purge. Corrupt executives were fired. Lawsuits were settled. And in the chaos, Darius rebranded the entire empire under his name. The media ran with it. The fall of Moreau Corp and the rise of Darius King. He became the face of corporate redemption. And while the world watched, Darius did something Moreau never would. He paid back the workers Moreau had underpaid and mistreated. He rebuilt communities Moreau had destroyed. He proved that power wasn't just about winning, it was about controlling the narrative. And with every move, his influence grew. But one loose end remained. Jordan Steele, the man who had framed him, the man who had set Moreau up to take the fall while he disappeared. Darius spent months hunting him, every offshore account, every political connection. And then one night, he found him. Jordan Steele sat in a luxury villa in the Maldives, sipping a glass of whiskey, believing he had won. He never saw Darius coming. Darius walked onto the private terrace, his footsteps slow, deliberate. Jordan looked up, his face unreadable. But Darius saw the flicker of fear. "You shouldn't be here," Jordan said, voice calm. Darius smirked. "Funny, that's exactly what I thought when you had me thrown in jail." Jordan sighed, setting his glass down. It wasn't personal. Darius's eyes darkened. "It was personal when you ruined my name, when you stole everything from me, when you killed Moreau just to cover your tracks." Jordan exhaled. He was weak. He made mistakes. "I don't." Darius pulled out his phone and pressed play. A voice recording filled the air. Jordan's voice. "Moreau, I don't care how you do it. Just get rid of him." King was never supposed to find out about the offshore accounts. Jordan's expression hardened. Darius smiled. "That's the thing about power, Steele. It's only real if you can protect it." Jordan's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" Darius leaned in. "Everything." 1 week later, news broke. Jordan Steele faces multiple charges for fraud, bribery, and money laundering. Evidence provided by Darius King. Jordan's entire empire crumbled overnight, And Darius, he didn't just take Steele down, he took his place. Now, Darius King stood atop a skyscraper with his name on it. Looking down at the city that once spat him out, they laughed at him once. Now, they worked for him. Power wasn't about money. It wasn't about revenge. It was about control. Darius had played the long game, and in the end, he won. To everyone watching, life will break you. People will betray you. But power isn't about avoiding failure. It's about learning from it. They said he'd never make it. Now, they call him boss. If you want to win in life, learn the game, play it better, and never let them see you coming. Comment below, what's your biggest takeaway from Darius' story? Subscribe for more stories that prove that revenge is best served with success.